Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Epic Loot Radio. My name's Brian, and joining me today I have Chaos Prime and Ruri from YouTube. You've seen them all over the place, and today we're going to be talking about the looter shooter, the state of it, Destiny 2, Anthem, Outriders. There's so much that we can do and have hopefully a really good conversation about. There's some news that we need to get to, especially at the top of the show, and I wanted to take some time to go around the horn and do some introductions. But just as a note from a podcast perspective, guys, I just got two updates. We've reached out to Vulcan and Brutal Expert, so we're going to try to get them both on the podcast. We even have Arex. We might be having him later on as Outriders gets closer to a launch, depending on if he enjoys the game or not. But I'm also running, several other podcasts. And just as a brief show note, PSO Radio is actually going to be merged into Epic Loot Radio for anybody who's been a fan of that podcast. And for New World and for Blue Protocol, we're going to take those two podcasts and move them into Crystal Core Radio, thus having hopefully a little bit more or a little bit less podcast, but a little bit more content in terms of quality for those shows themselves. But that note being set aside, if you guys are subscribed or following over on Ginger Gaming Radio, that's where most of these end up being host. And one of the things that I have for the community, if you guys can let me know, do you like Epic Loot Radio here on Ginger Prime? Is this something that you guys enjoy? Sound off in the comments below. And that way I can kind of gauge if this is the perfect home for it to exist alongside of Ginger Gaming Radio. YouTube's a weird world. I'll leave it at that. So let's get into the content. I'm going to start with, we've got Chaos. He's back. He's kind of my co-host extraordinaire in this case, but I want to start with Ruri. This is the first time on Epic Loot Radio. You and I have just collabed, our first collab over on your channel together on Final Fantasy 14. Can you take some time, introduce yourself to the Soul Nation, and that way they can check out your content? And it's also in the question would be, what else are you playing right now? So go ahead, show's yours right now.
Why are they called the Soul Nation? That would be like my first question.
Great question. Gingers don't have souls, and I also am a huge fan of Star Trek. And so the joke that I had at the beginning in my mind is that it's not that gingers don't have souls. There's just one soul, and I'm the prime. And so all ginger-ness is anyway, it's such an egotistical joke. But I loved it so much. And so that's why we are the Soul Nation. There you go.
It's just interesting that it involves souls, because one of the first things that I was known for was Dark Souls. I'm a huge fan of the Souls franchise. So Demon Souls, Dark Souls, all that stuff I've played. That's actually how I got started with the current channel that I'm working with. But right now, my main focus is Monster Hunter. So anyone that loves Monster Hunter, I do a lot of coverage. I've been covering the crap out of Rise. Did a lot of stuff during World, and we'll do also stories and all of that stuff that is coming up for Monster Hunter. And I also like quite a bit of Final Fantasy 14, which I've also been trying to do some more coverage now on the channel. And those are actually pretty much the only two games that I've been playing. Like, I want to get around to playing Persona 5 Royal, which I still haven't gotten around to finishing. But other than that, it's mostly just been the Monster Hunter Rise demo and Final Fantasy 14, grinding tokens and doing a little bit of Bosja here and there. That's been pretty much what I've been working on the past couple of weeks.
Nice. How about you, Chaos? What you playing right now? And why don't you just tell everybody, we've got some big stuff in the show that I think you're going to be excited about, but why don't you introduce yourself for those who haven't seen you before?
So I'm Chaos. I've basically been introduced to the world of YouTube through Anthem, much to people's dismay. But I started off with Anthem. It was one of the games that actually really took my liking, and my channel originally was focused around Anthem before it went into its hiatus, and then I started exploring. I'm currently focused on Outriders, which is the up-and-coming looter shooter, not live service, is a live service game. But, so if you're looking for that sort of content and other stuff pertaining to that, you can check me out over there. At the moment, I'm playing The Medium, which is a really good game. If you like games like Silent Hill, it's a real throwback to those type of games with a fixed camera. Mm-hmm. It's really good, and it's got a real number of jump scares in there. Outside of The Medium, I'm playing Final Fantasy 14, which I recently got back into again with the new update, and just playing through boss, just trying to level up my remaining characters, and a bit of Genshin Impact.
Nice, very nice. Now I want to highlight a comment from chat right now. Tyler says, "What are your guys' biggest hope for Outriders?" Let's do this as a comment, and then I'll outline the rest of what we're going to be covering today. Start with you, Chaos.
My biggest hope for Outriders is that it's a game that we can get sunk into and enjoy as a group, and that there's enough customization in there to make the experience your own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to be like a single meta where everyone just goes in. I just want the story, the lore to be interesting so we can dive in, and hopefully with enough support and the game doing well, if the game is as good as we're hoping it is, we can see more because it looks great.
What about you, Rory?
So when it comes to Outriders, my biggest hope right now is that it kind of breaks the streak of awfulness that we've had. Not just awfulness for the sheer of awfulness, but like the fact that we've had a lot of unfinished games in the looter genre. Like we had Anthem, which I still loved the gameplay. I even just talked with a friend of mine last night about it, like how both of us really enjoyed the gameplay, but ultimately the content wasn't there. Then we had which one came after Anthem? I don't even remember, but there was one after Anthem.
Avengers.
Then there was Marvel's
Avengers, yeah.
Yeah, Marvel's Avengers, which also had its problems. Again, I enjoyed the gameplay, but there was problems with the content. Then we had Godfall, which again, enjoyed the gameplay, problems with the content. I'm just hoping that Outriders can break the mold, for the love of God. Like, I don't need it to be a live service. Like, I'll be happy with what they are saying. It's just whether or not what they're saying is true. Because at this point, I don't even know what to believe in anymore, right? Because they're saying you're going to get like 40 hours of single player campaign if you do some of the side stuff. And then on top of it, you get like 15 expeditions at the end, which is going to form the end game. And none of that is going to be reuse of assets. So I'm just hoping all of that is true and that they deliver on the gameplay. And I am solid. Yeah. Like the game doesn't have to last me forever. I just want to have a solid experience. And, you know, eventually if I feel like leaving the game, just be like, you know, I stopped playing this game, but I loved playing it along the way. That's what I want. I don't want to leave the game and be like, God damn, dude, if they had only done this, it would have been so much better. Right?
Cyberpunk.
Oh man, I want a game that's finished when it releases, and like not that we can't get DLCs and updates down the line. I really just want to have that full, complete packaged experience and something that is just like, here's your game. You know, like go nuts, have fun. This is what it ends up being. For me, I'm really excited about the story. What they've set up in the trailers, what they set up with the lore with Enoch. It just seems really fascinating to kind of experience. And then I'm excited to see what the community can take and run with it. Like are we going to see a speedrunning community built out of this? Like, are we going to see lots of fun, interesting builds that people can play? I think we were I was talking with Rory, and actually I saw some kind of some people in the comments just leaning into me on my theory that games should be fun before they're balanced. I tend to put a game being fun over a game being balanced, like the fun being the higher priority of the two. And people are like, no, balance is important. And then I was talking with Chris about it, talking to how the quote from the game developers, like gamers will optimize the fun out of anything in this case. And I was like, all right. And I tweeted that. And yep, again, like it's that I wouldn't think it was a contentious viewpoint, but apparently it is. And apparently I'm in the minority. Screw fun. It's got to be balanced. But at the end of the day, like there is a truth to balance, right? Like if there's 4 classes and only one's fun, then there's a problem there. And so like just note that I'm not sitting here saying that that I hope that everything's broke.
I mean,
right.
The way I see it, if the game is fun, it doesn't matter about balance. I mean, balance is important to a certain degree, but a game could be balanced and you'll hate the living crap out of it. But if it's fun and you're having a good time and you're just enjoying yourself with a bunch of friends, balance can go out the window.
Yeah, and
I think this is one of those arguments that it's like I can see both sides of the coin, but as someone that played a lot of World of Warcraft and constantly wanting to play one of the classes that was garbage, and it's like it's not fun to play a class that's garbage. So it's like ultimately this is one of those things where it can go either way. I can see both sides of the argument, and it could be a discussion that we could just be here for like 3 hours talking about it and not really come to a complete agreement, basically.
Yeah. So I want to go 1 second, Cass. I want to take a little bit of time to kind of just give chat and everybody here listening, watching, just kind of the outline for the show, because I think that's a really good, intro. today we've got news. We've got essentially Destiny 2 Season of the Chosen. We're going to kind of talk about that. We've all, at some point, I think, touched Destiny to a degree, or at least know about it, especially as the state of the looter shooters. That's the overall theme for today's show. We're also going to talk about Anthem 2.0 hints. Chaos himself has actually tweeted this out this week, posted a video on Anthem 2.0. Are we getting news? It's coming up on its second anniversary. And I think Anthem is going to always be a conversation piece when it comes to, you can't talk about looters if you can't talk about Anthem, because essentially there's lessons to be learned there. And maybe that's what we'll see here with the future, especially as it relates to Outriders. Also, we've got Diablo 4 and Overwatch kind of in the news a little bit. I want to touch on that a little bit in the top of the show. And then for our topics for today's show, I want to focus in on Outriders. We saw legendary gloves this week. Also want to talk about how there's no in-game communication system. Reddit community has been talking about that, debating the use of ping. How are people, especially with cross-play, going to be able to communicate? And I think people typically say Discord is your option, but I want to bring that up to the panel and as well as to chat, get some feedback on what everybody's feeling there. I'm going to talk a little bit about PvPers versus anti-PvPers, especially as it relates to that. Like whenever we talk about Outriders, I see a lot of debate going around that. We actually, Chaos and I kind of just hung out with the community and answered questions, and that was actually a really hot, popular topic. So I figured we'd kind of talk about that and let everybody know here. And then also future modes that we want to see as a part of the Outriders show. Now, Chaos, you were about to say something, so let me go ahead and give it back to you real quick, and then that way we can jump into the full podcast.
Oh, I was just going to piggyback off Rurikon and say it was very genre specific when balancing really comes into effect. Something like MMOs, you need it balanced. Something like a multiplayer Outriders type of game, I think a free-for-all would actually work quite well.
Yeah, there's the sense of the power of fantasy where it's like the goal is kind of in a way breaking, but then ultimately in a multiplayer game where I can impact your fun negatively by basically excluding you because of your class and things like that. I think that's where there is a fine line to be had, and that's where the conversation gets really nuanced. Maybe we'll do a whole show on that. We'll get more people from a panel perspective, because I don't want to just iterate like, here's what I think. All right. So first topic, we're going to be talking about Destiny 2. In this case, the Season of the Chosen has been revealed. We've seen some information about the show itself. And all in all, like, I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on Season of the Chosen. I think I was talking either with Rory or, I was talking with a lot of people about it. And ultimately, the discussion ended up falling into is that gamers are fatigued. Gamers are just apathetic to Destiny 2 at the moment, and there's conversations within the larger Destiny 2 content creator base of it just kind of just like, should we keep creating content around it and things of that nature. So I'd love to get y'all's thoughts, especially as it relates to Destiny 2, especially with this upcoming season. I'll give my perspective here in a little bit, but I'd like to start with you, Chaos. I know that you and I've had lots of conversations around Destiny, and you like me, sometimes I'm in, and sometimes I'm just kind of watching and waiting for the next thing to come. What's your take on the state of Destiny and this next season?
Well, you have to hand it to the guy that makes the trailer. He needs a promotion again, because he sure knows how to sell products. But the way I'm seeing Destiny at the moment, they kind of don't know where they want to go. They're just trying to find something that sticks, and they're just throwing stuff out there that's see whether it works or not, and then they'll just keep on trying. Now they're bringing back a bunch of D1 weapons, and that's all cool and everything, but you're giving me stuff I've already paid for that you've taken away. And they're doing that a lot now with the vaulted D2 stuff. Mm-hmm. They've taken all your god rolls away, and they're just delivering your god rolls back again with just the same weapons. And, we don't know if those perks are going to be great or not. It's just, at the moment, it just feels
like a failure. Like sunsetting and how they've implemented it and how they started bringing the same stuff that you've already got back. I'm just like, no. Like it.
So
go ahead.
I've actually been meaning to ask you guys, because I've heard a lot about the community complaining about the sunsetting situation. I haven't really been following Destiny as closely as I used to back in the beginning of Destiny 2, pretty much was when I was at my height of Destiny playtime. I was doing the raid. I was doing all this stuff. Since then, I haven't kept up too much with it. What's this sunsetting thing that people keep talking about?
All right. So imagine you're playing a game and you love it and you work hard and you get this weapon and you just love this weapon. And then I say, hey, by the way, that weapon's no longer useful for you. And in a couple of months, I say, hey, go get that weapon again. But you're like, I already have it. I was like, yeah, but you can't use that one. You got to go get it again. And the thing is like, that sucks. Like, and people have debated it like every which way. But at the end of the day, like, this comes into the balance versus the fun. Like wait, like I worked hard. I got that weapon. I really love that weapon. You took it away. You let me keep it in my inventory, but you're like, yeah, no. And then now you're saying I can go get that weapon again. It doesn't ever feel good. It's like I'm really more or less talking about the feelings rather than like, okay, like the balance and okay, well, how do you give people aspirational content and like they can't clearly make obviously enough stuff and how do you do the gun stuff? I don't care about any of that. Like it doesn't feel good.
That just feels like content recycling for the sake of content recycling to increase engagement, to basically try and keep up those engagement metrics. And I think that the player base in general is becoming more savvy about those things. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, yeah, this is fun to some extent, but it's almost like you need to figure out how much of a percentage of the game is really fun and how much of a percentage of the game is you're just grinding to get to that fun bit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I kind of feel like players are becoming more savvy to the fact that like, okay, so at this point they're giving me like 80% grind to get to the 20% of fun. And that's what sunsetting, the way that you guys just explained, sounds like to me. It's like we're taking your fun away. And then it's like we're taking this carrot away, and then we're putting the carrot in front of you again so that you can go chase it. And then when you think about it, it's like, so does that mean that 8 months from now, you're going to take the carrot away again? And then you're going to put the same carrot in front of me so that I can just like keep going after it, chasing it forever? Because I mean, ultimately, that is kind of like what they want, right? They want you engaged. They want you playing the game, and they're trying to go, they're trying to do stuff to keep you playing the game. That was actually one of the reasons I stopped playing Destiny. Was because of what they did with the EXP. That's the thing we talked about the other day, where they were heavily throttling player experience, and they said we're not doing that, and then players were able to prove that they were doing that, and then they were like, yeah, we were doing that, and it's like, but it's okay, and I feel like a lot of people didn't just kind of like brush that under the rug. Like I never forgot about that. I was just like, I can never trust you again, like after what you did. And now what you guys are saying with the sunsetting mechanics, it just feels more like that. It's basically they're doing stuff that is going to keep players hooked onto the game, regardless as to whether or not it is fun for them. And that is a problem.
Puts them on life support in that regard, as opposed to like, I think honestly, Destiny's working on something bigger in that regard. So we've heard rumors about, what their next project is and how that it's coming at some point in the next several years. And while we could sit here and theorize about all that, you still have to deal with the reality of how people are playing today. Now, Paul Barton says, here's a weird concept. Destiny 2's main draw seems to be PvP. How do you think the community would react if it transitioned into a battle royale or Apex Legends style game? And this is where I want to kind of jump in and seed a little bit of thoughts as to my expectation for Destiny. And Rory's got his right there visually. So first and foremost, I think the lack of actually engaging PvP content within Destiny is a big hurt on what I've experienced. And this will tie into what we talked about later in Outriders. And I have a completely different view of Outriders and PvP. But with Destiny as a core game concept, we haven't gotten new maps. We haven't gotten any of these things. And after I played through the campaign of Beyond Light, I was like, all right, I guess this is my next break from Destiny. And I have been a player who has been playing Destiny for coming up on 7 years, I guess, this year. There's been times where I stepped away. Not Trials of Osiris, the Curse of Osiris being kind of the biggest one and most memorable. And then eventually now, like with Beyond Light, I'm just like, okay, you let me know if I'm going to kind of jump back in. I've always been drawn to the PvP aspect of Destiny itself. Now, how would I respond if they added a Battle Royale Apex Legends style game? With enthusiasm, because it would mean it was any kind of update to PvP. We haven't gotten new maps. We haven't gotten new modes. Like it feels like PvP from Destiny's perspective is on live support. And that's something that I'm just like, okay, like I'll just go play something else, or I'll go play Apex Legends, or I'll go play Warzone or something like that. If Call of Duty didn't make it like, effing 100 gigs to have that game installed. What do you think, Chaos?
I wouldn't want a battle royale in Destiny personally. I think the PvP is enough of a mess as it is, and stasis is not helping it at all. They need to just remove stasis from PvP. That is one of the biggest draws in PvP right now.
Yeah,
it's for me. The little PvP that I did play, it absolutely ruined it. Being frozen in place, not being able to move, is one of the most frustrating things you can do to a player in a video game. Whoever thought that was a good idea in PvP needs to have something re-examined, because that isn't fun. That is the type of thing that will get you smashing your head against the wall. Trust me. I don't like it, and I don't think Battle Royale would work in Destiny. Touching on your point where you said PvP is in life support to a certain extent, I'd agree, but that is partly due to stasis. But at the same time, isn't PvE in life support?
I think all the game is just like when we talk about sunsetting, when we talk about some of these things, it's like you can blame COVID for a certain percentage of the issues. You could, like, for a percentage of it, like there's certain things, like I'm not saying the whole thing, but we can't sit here and just excuse the fact that like game development is hard. Like, oh yeah, like it's easy for us as commenters and players to be like, just flip the switch, and it's like sometimes it's just not that easy. However, like, but it does feel like right now, Destiny has its highs and its lows, and I think one of the things, an important aspect out of especially the looter shooter and from a content creator's perspective, is to sit here and have a balance of these games. I think that's why Outriders is the most appealing to me right now, because it says, this is our game. We're not going to try to sell you on a future. We're not going to try to sell you on logging into this game every day. We've got a story for you to complete. We've got this end game for you to take part in, and we want you and hope that you enjoy it. And then you can go about and play other games. I think it's probably that there isn't really enough for people to kind of glam onto. You see content creators finding and struggling with the game itself, and then you also see gamers like, okay, is this game even for me anymore? Now, King of Shadows says that PvP does feel like it does have one foot in the grave right now, and it's like I would love to see them do a little bit more.
With what you guys are describing that stasis is, again, keep in mind I haven't played Destiny a long time, but basically it's crowd control meta, which is kind of like what you probably still see it a lot in World of Warcraft. But it's like crowd control meta is never fun. When the whole thing is about, oh, I froze someone, now they can't do anything about it, and I'm going to kill them. Like, taking control away from a player is the worst thing that you can do. Like, you're trying to move, you're trying to run, you're trying to do something, and suddenly, like, your character just stops moving for whatever reason. Like, it's the worst feeling in the world. And it's one thing if you're outplayed or something, but I kind of feel like the fast pace of Destiny PvP lends itself even worse. Like, how long can you be frozen by a stasis spell?
A couple seconds.
It's long enough for them to kill you.
Yeah, it basically means you're dead. Like, it's not. There's nothing too fancy about it. You die. That's what it means.
Yeah, then that type of PvP experience is just not particularly fun, particularly in a shooter. Like, it's a Twitch-based shooter. They have some of the best shooting in the business, because despite the fact that I don't play it, I can instantly recognize it when it comes to shooting.
It's the gameplay that gets you right back in. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The thing is that no matter like how big they mess up or like how whatever they're trying to do, when you return, you're like, "Daggum, this feels so good." And that's one of the things that I have a hope for Outriders, is that if Outriders feels good to pull that trigger, if it feels good to use that ability, people will wait. And then even if it's like several months or however long until the expansion or the update, it's like, cool, like we give you a playground to play if you want. And then when you come back, you're like, sometimes stepping away does have a healthy, aspect for the player in that regards, that kind of that fondness of like, what is it where like you, anyway, it's some kind of love kind of thing where it's like you grow, you miss when you miss somebody.
It's the refresh. It's the refresh of you just like, you come back into it fresh. You're not like grinding it every day. You just came back into it fresh, and it feels good to kind of get back into that cycle.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is that, for the comparison that you were talking about, how Outriders is just like, it's this one game that you're just supposed to play it. And then, by the time you're done, it's whatever. Like, that's the difference, because the way that developers have to develop for Destiny It's not like that. Even with the very first Destiny, they were just like, we have a 10-year plan. This is going to be a 10-year franchise. And it's like, first, you want to make sure that you do a game that's fun. Then you can think about playing the game for 10 years. You don't just start with the basis like, no, we want you to play this game for 10 years. And it's
that foundation.
Like, well, what if it's not fun for me to play this game for 10 years?
Yes,
it's like, I'm not going to do it.
Fun.
It was. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying it wasn't fun enough to play for 10 years.
But that's why you evolve it. You don't release a whole new game and change everything.
Well, yeah, and maybe that could have been handled a little bit differently. At the end of the day, obviously, I'm just kind of looking at it and telling you how I feel and how I feel about the state of Destiny right now. And I want it to be bigger. I want more reasons to log in. I hope that Tuesday when they drop the newest season, that I find it like going in and playing is a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, like, I think there's three things that are true about Destiny. You have the season of hype, you have the season of grind, and you have the season of bitch. And right now we're in that third season. It's all over Twitter. It's all like with that's the piece of it. And it's like, okay, I choose to opt out of that. So I'm just like, okay, like, let me know when I'm ready to play. I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to enjoy pulling that trigger. But I want to move us into something that our good man here, Chaos Prime, created this week. We have, essentially, it's been a while, some Anthem maybe news in this regards. I want to talk about Anthem 2.0 hints and news coming up on the 22nd anniversary. So Chaos, if you guys don't follow him on Twitter, Chaos Prime ZZ in this case. Anthem 2.0, could it be coming soon? Obviously, there's some tweets out this week. If you guys haven't seen that video, please go give it a watch. But Chaos, why don't you talk about Anthem 2.0? What makes you think we're going to finally get some news in this desert that we've been in?
Well, see, there's a guy called Jonathan Warner, which many of you may or may not have heard, but he does work for BioWare Austin. Now, he was releasing tweets about the 25th or 26th year anniversary or whatever it is for BioWare, and someone asked him about Anthem, and he responded by saying, keep an eye out on Christian Daly's Twitter.
That's a key. That's interesting. Go ahead.
And basically, I went over to Christian's Twitter profile, and he is still overseeing Anthem, even though he's over at Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
It is still a project under his wing. He's not releasing any more fundamental news in terms of weekly updates, but he is still overseeing that project, as well as other projects, I assume, within BioWare Austin. But he did say basically that Christian Daly will be releasing some news, and Christian Daly did promise us some news on Endgame and other features within a future blog. So hopefully we will get some news. It is the anniversary coming up on the 22nd or the 28th of February, depending on whether they go with the early launch for the PC or the global release, which was on the 28th. Last year, they were about a week late on both of those dates before they released something. So I hope they don't go do that again. But yeah, so I'm hoping coming nearer to the 2-year anniversary, they'll release something. My hope is like a PTS. That would be like absolutely amazing, but that's a wishful thinking, right?
So I got a question. What do you think the business model of Anthem 2.0 is going to be?
New purchase.
I think that they should give it to everybody who had it and played at a certain point. Like at the point of it saying, honestly, I could see it saying, here's the game. You bought this, you get 2.0. Then essentially selling people either a season pass model, which is not my preferred method, or an expansion model. I prefer the expansion model over anything else. Saying like, hey guys, here's 2.0. You get to play, like it's a 20-hour campaign, like something like it's like you can play and experience this game for free, whether you maybe even purchase it or not. Maybe they have an amazing demo or something. And then essentially it's like, and now you can also have the expansion, almost kind of like how ARR, which means Final Fantasy 14 A Realm Reborn, handled it. Hey, you had 1.0, here's 2.0. Go nuts. And then essentially then they said, then they sold you Heaven's Word after that. Or for new players, then they had buy the game in that regards. That would be my ideal. What do you think, Chaos?
It's really tricky.
Yeah.
I'm looking at King of Shadows' comment there, where he says they can't charge players who bought it on launch. Don't think. At the same time, I think it was 3 months after launch, I can see them having that record and giving it to those people as a free upgrade, but I don't see everyone getting a free upgrade, mainly because they were giving out codes like crazy once 19 hit, right?
Yeah.
And as well as before then, they were just giving out codes anyway to players to experience the game.
It was
So
it was a really
be.
well sold game. Like, we can't sit here and deny the fact that it's like, guys,
Well, it
it
was the
was
fifth
one of the
most selling
top.
game.
Yeah, it was an incredible, like, well sold game. Like, when you looked at the chart,
It sold really well. It probably also got refunded really well, though.
I don't think so. Like, the only real refunds we've seen were on like Cyberpunk, and still people are going to most likely keep that game themselves. The other aspect of what we haven't even brought up is the concept of Game Pass. Like, it's a part of EA Access, EA Play, and that's included in Game Pass now. And so there'd be a high probability that you could see that just being a game that is supported and driven off of that kind of subscription model. Like, hey, if you've got it, you're good to go. If you're a part of EA Play, like, it's a part of this game, and then they could sell you, something else if they needed to at that moment. Well, like, yeah, what do y'all think about that?
I think that they need to ensure that people that bought it don't have to pay for it again, because that is going to be the thing that just gives them a bunch of bad publicity. Because
you got to
going to be like,
trust.
so yeah, you have to rebuild trust at this point. And I don't even know if they can rebuild trust, because ultimately, their publisher is EA and the developer is BioWare, and both have had pretty lackluster release records as of late. You got your Mass Effect Andromeda, and you have a lot of other nonsense happening with EA that I don't even want to bring up, right? So it's like they just need to rebuild trust. The only way to rebuild trust is to give it to everyone that bought the game. How they go about doing that, I don't know, because some people bought physical editions. Some people bought digital editions. How are they going to identify the people that bought physical editions or not? Mm-hmm. The problem becomes that what my suspicion is going to be a free-to-play game. They're going to relaunch it as a free-to-play game. And for the people that bought it, they're going to give you like X amount of currency or something like that. That, I think, is the easiest way to go about it, but I don't think that's a good way to go about it. I don't know what the solution is, because ultimately I want to see it happen. Because like I've always said, I love the Anthem gameplay. It's just too bad that the content wasn't really there. And it also, they seem to lack direction due to some of the decisions that they've made along the way. I've made a bunch of videos talking about that stuff as well. But those are my thoughts on it.
I think what it's important is that outside of whether it's free to play, outside of whatever model they do, they have to launch it as a good game. Like, the gameplay, I think, was there in my opinion, but the loop of it, the content, like running back and forth, like when you're out and about and flying around and shooting things, that's great. When you're sitting at constant load screens and these weird moments that it breaks up the combat and you got to go walk around in first person view. Like, there's things that it's like the game was there, like it felt like it was designed by multiple different committees, and then they tried to just sew it all together, and it just didn't work. Go ahead, Cass.
I mean, the game in many ways felt like it was put together with sticky tape.
Mm-hmm.
There was no real direction for the project, and we already noticed that a lot of it was just haphazard put together. I mean, the fact that they didn't have a screen where you can see all your stats is proof. Something like that is so easy to implement. I know this because I've created one at work. I know game developers that work in Sumo, in Sega, and they've also confirmed to me it's really simple because it's just lookup tables that they're looking for, putting it into a place. It's not difficult. It's just the fact that none of it worked, and they knew a lot of it didn't work, which is why they kept on stringing people along. Now, the question is whether they're going to release this on current gen consoles or move it straight over to the next gen consoles. Personally, I feel the last gen consoles held it back, especially with the hard drive. I think you need the faster hard drive for something like this, especially if you want to have that seamlessly transitioning loading screen from leaving Fort Tarsus into the open world, like the E3 demo. You just need faster data speed. So next gen consoles, I think, will be where it's going to. I think is where it's going to be a go. To answer Rurikon's point, I think they can actually see who got the game because they've got data from save files, right?
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is stored
from the servers,
yeah. So that stuff they could just easily say, right? Anyone that had the game from February the 22nd to April the 22nd, we'll give you the game for free. anyone that had it after the next 2 months when the price was dropping, you'll need to pay like a nominal fee of 10 quid. And when you go in, it'll give you like the option to upgrade. I just don't see it being free to everyone because there were so many copies being given out. However, those people that purchased it at launch, I think should be given a free upgrade to the next gen version because they were there day one supporting the franchise, despite the fact that they knew the game was in such a turmoil mess.
Yeah,
I don't think everyone should get it.
I think what we're looking at right now is that as we come up on its second year since release, I think the community deserves an update, and and that means like whatever that looks like. The fact is that the article I've got up right now on screen is from October 28th. I am rooting for Christian Daly. I'm rooting for the team. I'm always going to be rooting for it. And in fact, we probably should have. I'd love to get more a bigger panel talking about. Should we support games after they've failed? Like, should we root for their success and rebirth? Because I see that's a constant topic debated within the community. So we'll explore that like in a future podcast. But I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Rajvi says loading screens actually are a lot better right now. I play on PS5 and loading screens are down to less than a minute. I actually have played it on Series X over December. Love it. Like it is so fast and furious, but they need to give us something to hope for. And then when we talk about whether it's like next gen or current gen, I definitely say like, just go next gen. Let's just set a new starting point. Let's set a new decade for this game or something like that, but also have the best possible experience because it has to hit that 2017 demo. Like that's what they sold people on. If they need to hit that. Because that would be something really exciting to see and play out. But we'll have to ultimately wait and see what happens over the next couple of weeks. As somebody who's a fan of this game, who found a lot of joy in it and saw the potential around it, I really wanted to see this game make a return. But there is a ticking time bomb on that, and that's kind of a big part of today's podcast, in which that we've got continuing down the line. Now, in light of this, I also kind of want to highlight here Diablo 4 news and Overwatch have been confirmed that they're not making it in 2021. I think that actually does give Anthem a leg up, if that makes any kind of sense, because with Outriders coming out in March, that's actually really good news for Outriders. Like you're not gonna like. I think there's generally some like for me, I love the looter. I love RPGs. I love that aspect. And now I'm not going to have to be torn by playing Outriders or Diablo 4. Now, we didn't have a release date on that, but the fact that the Blizzard's taking their time to put their effort into these games, I think is a good thing for these games, but it's also a good thing for other games that are not necessarily going to have to butt up heads. But there's still a timeline. Imagine having to choose between like Anthem and Diablo 4 or something with a known IP and something that's been given the love that it needs versus something that hasn't. Now, Overwatch for me isn't as important, but that was still bundled up as a part of the news itself. Do you guys have any thoughts about either of these seemingly interesting delays?
I mean, first, I got to ask, did you say March? I thought it was April because you're scaring me.
It is April. Yeah, it's April. April 1st. April 1st. Like, I'm so close.
April Fools.
He just doesn't want to believe it's April the 1st, that's all.
Like, I'm playing in March. I don't know about you guys.
In regards to the Blizzard updates, my faith in Blizzard has been very, very shaken over some of the stuff that they've done over the last couple of years. I think that Overwatch was actually something that I was somewhat curious about because it's going to have like some kind of co-op elements to it. Overwatch 2, at least it was supposed to have some co-op elements to it. So that is the one thing that I'm more curious about. I think that Overwatch gameplay is solid, but I don't know how they go from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2. Right? They need to make it distinct in a way, and it feels so similar from the stuff we've seen so far, with the exception of the co-op stuff. So that I don't know how they're going to differentiate it. That's probably why they're taking more time with it. Now, in the terms of Diablo 4, I'm super hesitant about Diablo 4 because of the fact that they're already talking about how they can monetize the game and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, you haven't even made a fun game yet. Like, you haven't even delivered. Like, we've seen
fun. Yeah. Didn't worry about that. Like the other stuff, I think will handle itself. But go ahead, please continue.
We've seen, for instance, Riker. He's played it, and Riker said that it was fun for him. He thought that it was good. The stuff that they were working on, the art that we've seen of the game, it's very dark, which is what a lot of the Diablo fan base wants. As someone that loved Diablo, but it's one of those things. They have to bring in some contrast, and they have to make sure that the systems work to feel a little bit closer to what Diablo 2 was. Not necessarily emulate Diablo 2, but to feel like an evolution of Diablo 2 and not be like Diablo 3, because Diablo 3 had a lot of stuff holding it back. So yeah, you need to feel the character progression in a meaningful way instead of just being like, oh, I got this thing and I just slot in this new thing and slot the new thing and the new thing. And it's always the new thing. Like stats need to come into play, and specific builds and investment and all that stuff needs to come into play in a meaningful way. And I'm not sure if the Blizzard of today is going to be able to pull that stuff off, but I'll be curious to see it. But in a way, I'm also happy that that thing's being pushed back, because I want the rest of the year for me to just play like Monster Hunter Rise and Outriders. That's pretty much my plan.
That almost in a way, I mean, and who knows, anything can change, but that almost in a way doesn't give Blizzard a release again this year, in which that, at the end of the day, like, yeah, take your time, find the fun. I've played Diablo 4. It was a lot of fun. And I look forward to seeing what they can deliver with it, because I was like,
You've
this is
played
great.
Diablo 4?
Yeah, multiple times. So it's great. I love it. I can't wait to play more of it. So we'll hopefully get go hands on again. Yeah, you should be. I also played Immortal, but I was like, I don't like mobile games, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And then I got a great question before we move on into kind of our bigger topics, especially around Outriders. But Paul says, do you think that Lost Ark will be a significant competition for Diablo 4? And if it's released this year, will the D4 delay work against it? Abso-freaking-lutely. So if you guys have not played Lost Ark, I've also spent a lot of time with that game as well, and it is okay. And that's not a negative thing. I had a blast with it, but I don't speak Korean. And what I would hope for is that my enjoyment of playing Lost Ark diminished as it seemed like hope of it ever coming to the West dwindled. Now it sounds like Amazon is starting to publish them, and yes, when you play Lost Ark, it has a very that isometric feel. The gameplay, the loop had a lot of really good things working out for it. Very visually beautiful. And honestly, yes, that would be something that I would say would compete directly with Diablo 4, because it is where Lost Ark is actually more MMO and Diablo 4 is more shared world looter. Well, anyway, terms are terms. There is a huge aspect to that. And if they can get Lost Ark out this year, that's important. But there have been people who've been waiting for Lost Ark, I think, for the last 3 years. Like, it's been out in Korea for a long time, and it's a pain to try and play. And I did that. It was worth my time, but it's not for everybody right now. So I'm just waiting. Hopefully Amazon is the publisher who hopefully it comes and people can play and decide for themselves. Have you guys any thoughts there?
I would actually disagree that it's going to be a significant competition to Diablo 4 due to the simple fact that usually games that release out, like, they have separate release cycles. So like this game is already released in Asian territories. I don't know which ones, but it's been released in Korea. Yeah. So it's been released in other locations, and usually the hype dies down significantly when you get by the time you get to the West. Like, I'm talking as someone that has followed for years the Monster Hunter franchise, and they always did that. Like, it would release in Japan, and then like 1 year or 1 year and change afterwards, it would release in the West. And it never took off in the West because, the few people that were into the game enough that they would like learn how to speak Japanese, at least enough to understand what the game was like, they would buy the game in Japanese. They would play it in Japanese. By the time it released on the West, that core was not interested anymore. And then there wasn't any word of mouth for the other people that could potentially be interested. And I have a feeling, I'm not predicting it, this is just a feeling that I get, that Lost Ark might eventually be in that same boat, where there's a lot of people that have already played it in Korean servers and all of that. And, at this point, they're just like sitting and waiting to see if it comes to the West. But by the time the game eventually comes to the West, the hype is going to have significantly died down. And I think it's still going to see some modicum of success, but I don't think it's going to be enough to be significant competition for Diablo 4.
That's fair enough. So, there has been a loss in terms of that. Like, for me, I had a couple people on Discord saying, "Hey, Brian, like, are you excited about this game?" I'm like, "No," because it's right now it feels like it's never coming here. However, if that's the case, and there is that player base, the core thing is if I have friends playing that game, that's what I'll play. Like, I think having friends and playing games with my friends far outweighs. Like, I'll go play like a game that's like maybe a 5, and we'll have a great time. We'll get some alcohol involved. You know, like we'll spice it up. We'll put our own modifiers onto it if it's broken as all heck, and we'll laugh our heads off and, you know, probably move on. But I think essentially you're absolutely right. Like there is a window. I think that window closed, but if they can bring it back, if they can market it right, if it's got like the gameplay I thought was really solid, they can bring, you know, it supported a controller. So as a controller player, like I really like, great, let's go. I identified and connected a lot with that. You got any thoughts, Chaos?
Yeah, what I was going to say was I agree with Rurikon to the point where the magic is gone. If the game isn't out yet, it's all mysterious. Everyone is still wondering what it's like. You get to experience it everyone at the same time. You get to theory craft. You get to, you know, build your characters the way you want to, and then you can look online, talk on the forums. That aspect will already be set in stone by the time Lost Ark comes here. So it's not a case of you jumping on with friends or making new friends and trying to figure things out. It's all about just going to a wiki, looking up what's there, and then just implementing that into it. That magic of search and discovery and interaction with the community for a game like Lost Ark and Diablo is really important. And I think when a game has already been out for so long, it loses that mystical element that you're looking for when you're trying to play those games. And it's another reason why I think Diablo shouldn't be too scared. I think all they should be scared of is themselves. They need to make sure people have got. They need to make sure people have got their mobile phones.
Oh man, if only that game was also like on PC. I think Fortnite ruined a lot of the expectations for me, and I'm not a big Fortnite guy, but the fact that you can play on phone PC, like it's like, oh wait, like why wouldn't you do that? And then you have Genshin Impact supporting that aspect, being able to play on mobile, console, PC. I was like, yeah, like that's the future. That's the future we all want to see, and I don't know why people are struggling. Well, I guess they're struggling with it for technical reasons. Now, at this time, I do also have like Sharper Eagle says, Blue Protocol looks really good. Can't wait to play it. I am right there with you. I'm very much excited about Blue Protocol. Hopefully we get some news here in the future. We'll be sure to cover that over on Crystal Core Radio if we do in this case. All right, let's move into some Outriders conversation. I do appreciate there's just a lot of looter stuff going on right now. And it, like as a looter podcast, like it's important to talk about it. It's like, but obviously Outriders is something all of us are excited about. That's actually how I found, or Rory found me, just like, hey, let's talk about Outriders. It's like, I see you're covering it. Like, yeah. And actually one of the comments that I was really like surprised by at first, but happy about is that a lot of people commenting that they're so happy to see the community, especially the content creator community, already working together as we've reached out like to Vulcan. Congrats to Vulcan becoming a dad. That's like immensely exciting. And so he said that he's definitely wants to come on the podcast. Like just that, I was like, yeah, like it's about celebration of these games and things like that. So hopefully, same call out to anybody. Like if there's content creators, the best way you can help is tell me who they are. Like the YouTube algorithm is not going to do that. Like, and so if you find somebody that you like, and you know, just let me know who they are. I'd love to be able to talk with different creators about games. In that case, I think that's what makes podcasting so fun. But I want to shift us right now briefly into talking a little bit what happened in Outriders this week. Not much, but the demo is the 25th, so our countdown has begun. And last week was Legendary Armor Week. And so we saw some set pieces. We've got gear set bonuses. We see some stats. We see some mods. Like my heart is just ready. And and this week,
want to get on that min-max.
Well, like not yet. Like I'll min-maxing, like, oh yeah, I'll let people have fun with their maxes. I just want to sit here and just like, I love getting the idea, seeing what's happening. But we've got some stuff here. Like they released gloves today, so we'll talk about the gloves. If there's anything that stood out to you guys, for me, it's all about the mods, and I think that the mods that they show off for the at least for the Technomancer made it sound so much better. Like I felt like something was missing from the set last week. And then you have a couple of mods here that just make it sing. Guys, anything stand out to you guys about the legendary like armor? We had Chaos on last week, so Ruri, like I'd love to get your thoughts on what's your expectation for Outriders right now.
In terms of this armor, this is the first time that I'm actually looking at it. Looks interestingly enough, but it's like my thing about the armor is that you're going to be able to scrap the armor from what I understand and get like these mods and apply them to different armor. So my thing is actually the min-maxing, like figuring out the quirky builds that you can kind of do around them, where like you get a specific legendary item and then you're like, okay, I really like this mod. Then you get the other mod from another legendary item. And in reality, you don't want either of the legendary items. You just want the third item for the stats and bring the mods in for the third item. That is going to be something that I personally am going to spend a lot of time doing. And the stuff that we're watching on screen right now and the research that I've done on the game, it looks like that is going to be a big part of the gameplay experience. It's all going to be about how generous the loot is going to be. Like, is this going to be a case of like at the start of Anthem, we just talked about Anthem previously, the loot knob was like turned all the way down, and then they made a glitch and they turned it all the way up, and then they're like, no, that was a mistake, and then they turned it back all the way down again. It's like, that is something I definitely don't want to see, right? I want to see the loot figured out at least to a certain extent at the beginning of the experience, so that it's not like we're farming for hours and hours and hours and nothing drops. It doesn't have to be like a loot pinata every time, but I want to be able to get rewarded at a certain pace. Yeah, meaningful progression.
So, I mean, like, not to to rehash like my critique of Anthem, but it's like, I'm happy we're bringing PSO radio into Epic Loot Radio, because Phantasy Star Online is always kind of this, like, it is in my mind, the pinnacle, even it might not be your visual style, and the current version 2 is a little bit older, but it always had meaningful progression. You had the loot, sometimes pinatas, but you could do things with that loot, even if it wasn't like an upgrade. Oh, I'm going to take that, break it down, and I'm going to enhance the gear that I've got. And so, like, where Anthem, like, where I was like enjoying Anthem, and all of a sudden that enjoyment went down, was like, I love XP. XP gives me that meaningful progression. It's that set. I go to work, I get my check. I go to work, I go play. Like, I know what I agree to the terms. The terms are given out. And there's not anything more. There's not anything less. The pinatas are the bonuses. The loot drops are the bonuses. And what Anthem did was it said, hey, we're going to stop paying you for your time, and you're only going to maybe get bonuses. And then we would go to work, and then Chaos would just get every freaking legendary, and I never see anything drop. Yeah, that's right. Him flexing. And it's like, wait a minute, like, what are we doing here? Like, am I doing something wrong? And it just sets up a bad, kind of structure. And with Outriders, you take that loot, you can take the mods out, you collect your mods, they don't go away. So there is that chase there from a horizontal progression perspective, but then you can take that stuff, upgrade your weapons, upgrade your loot, do so many more things with it, so that even if you aren't getting the drop that you were chasing, there are perks and things like that can help increase your odds, as a part of your talent tree. Like if you're really chasing shotguns or something, you have some flexibility there, but you can still have this other meta game that allows you to kind of say, hey, I got some drops that weren't really for me, but that's okay, because I needed to break them down in the first place because they got some mods that I needed or something like that, which is, I think that in and of itself, you got to have that balance, it doesn't, and that's just where I'm thinking on it. What do you think, Chaos?
I think in terms of loot, it just needs to be balanced correctly. I don't think they should like completely explode it, because then you're just going to have an inventory problem. But I think it should be a progressive thing that just feeds you enough to keep you excited that whatever you kill is going to be providing you with that new shiny, because that's what we all play for, right? We're looking for that next new shiny, the next new weapon, the next new piece of armor, the next new piece of gear that's going to make us that bit more OP. And if you're going through a drought of not getting absolutely nothing, your entertainment value goes from here all the way down to here, because you're just sitting there looking at that guy over there. Look at all that new shiny garment he's got on, all that shiny shields and everything. You're just still there with your bronze armor and like, what about me? So it needs to be balanced right. And I think as long as they get the loot economy correct, I think it's well on its way. I mean, the stats and the mods clearly show that they're going to give us the power fantasy. So the last hurdle is the actual loot economy and making sure we get the right amount of loot, because there is a thing of getting too much loot. And for the love of God, once I get to a certain tier level, auto deconstruct the crappy stuff that no one ever wants. No one wants commons or rares when you're in World Tier 10. So auto deconstruct those and
Yeah, and as long as this deconstruction feeds into some, it doesn't have to be major progression, but just minor
Well, they're
progression.
materials, right, for your
Yeah.
upgrading, because you can upgrade your weapons, you can upgrade your armor stats in terms of like just individual stats. So being able to take them up even rarity tiers requires materials. So there's always a reason and use for those materials. So it's never a complete waste. Everything has a purpose from what we've seen so far, from what they've shown.
All right. So as far as it goes now, this week, big on the topics, especially over on Reddit, it's been confirmed like no in-game communication system for the game itself. I always hope, especially after playing like Apex, I go like the ping system needs to be a system in all multiplayer games, nonverbal communication that is system wide. And obviously right now we have heard that there is, at least at the current moment, there's no ping system in the game itself. What do you guys think about the communication? Is that going to be a problem for you? Is that going to be something that potential players are going to need to have some insight to? What do you guys think?
I don't really mind too much about a communication system. Like, I think a ping system would be really, really good, particularly one like Apex, even though I don't tend to play battle royales. Like, I think anyone that has seen the Apex ping system can be like, man, this is really good for you to be able to ping enemies and, maybe even ping strategies like, hey, maybe do an ability over here or something, or I'm about to do my big AoE. Like, if you're a Devastator in particular, you want to be able to easily tell people, big AoE clump over here, so like get ready for it. And that type of communication is what I think is the most important. In terms of voice comms, I don't really think that there's been a game that has excelled at voice comms. Like, usually you just get like a worse experience than Discord or the PlayStation Party system or the Xbox Live system. Like, usually the platforms that you play in tend to be better. The problem does come about something that I wasn't even thinking about too much, but you brought up at the start, which is the crossplay. It's like when you got crossplay involved, it's not like I'm going to be playing on my PlayStation 5 and suddenly someone on a PC is going to be able to hear me because the PlayStation Party system is not going to communicate with the PC. At those points, you're going to need to resort to Discord. There's no easy solution. And I don't think an in-game system is going to fix that because, like I said, I've seen hundreds of games try to do in-game voice chat, and it very rarely works in a decent way. It always sounds bad for some strange reason, like they can't capture people's microphones properly. It gets staticky. The quality is terrible. So it's like, if I'm playing from my PS5 with someone on PC, at that point, it's like, look, I'll just either use my phone with Discord or use a PC with Discord. That's kind of like the only real solution that I see for communications right now. But the ping system is something that I would really like to see.
A ping system would go a long way in giving players like something to be able to just like target this guy. Because that's like, especially from a mechanical perspective, right? When you have fights that like, hey, if you need to, like, we need to fight this guy, and you have like a random group, it would help just to kind of like, hey, I want to target this guy. Now, the legal aspect, there's a legal development aspect when these games now have these systems that they're required that if you're going to have a voice chat system, that it translates that to text. Same kind of thing. If you're going to have a text chat, it's going to have to be able to have that versatility. This was put into law, like I think the last 2 years, and that's why you've seen some games, even Anthem, originally struggling with its law.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
because
it is like. Go ahead.
If you look at the new PS5 game that just was put onto PS Plus, All Destruction Stars, that car
Destruction
racing,
All-Stars. Yeah,
that's the one. That's shocking. That literally enables voice chat in the game without your permission. There is no text, voice to text. And what's crazy about it is you can mute yourself in the lobby, but your controller is still active and you don't know. So you
actually,
have to
the controller has a button for muting the microphone.
Yeah,
so
but what it is, there's as soon as you start a round, it puts you into a lobby that's within the PlayStation infrastructure for voice chat. So you have to press the PS button, press square to mute that lobby that's within the internal infrastructure of the actual game. But that doesn't mute your controller. So my son was playing, and then he could hear all these people like using vulgar language. And I was like, I've muted that channel, and I didn't even know about it.
What is happening?
And then I realized
I'm
it's coming from the
surprised because
controller.
like I played it and I just pressed the mute button and I never heard anyone. Like
yeah.
I didn't do the mute lobby thing. I just muted it on the controller, and I never heard anyone speak. But it might have just been because other people were muting as well. I don't know.
Yeah, but there was no text to speech when they were talking. Sorry, speech to text. There was no text there. So I know this came out during.
I wonder if there's certain things that are then platform based, but I remember like them actually like as a part of like certain things like, hey, from an accessibility. Anthem was one of the conversations about it that it recently had been passed a while back, and eventually it was like at this point in time, like if you're going to have these types of communication systems, they have to do these extra things. In that regards, I'm wondering maybe the console manufacturers get around it because they do have like a party chat or things of that nature. But I think King of Shadows brings it perfectly, sums it up. Add Discord to consoles.
I agree.
That would solve a lot of this, especially in terms of in the age of crossplay, because it's a required tool if you're going to like. It's a requirement if you're going to do crossplay and have voice chat, because that's a system that works on. Outside of consoles, everything else. So.
And I'm sure that Discord would love that. It's just a matter of I think Microsoft would probably implement it faster than Sony. Sony's a little bit more protective of their stuff, but I'm pretty sure that if the Discord team goes up to Xbox, hey, we'd like to put our app in your platform, I'm pretty sure that Microsoft's going to gobble that up.
Phil has already expressed multiple times that he's interested in bringing Discord over to the Xbox platform. It's all about the money, right? They need to make sure the contract works for both. So I think that's where the delay is happening right now. And obviously there's all these acquisitions going on. But
lots of acquisitions. Borderlands Gearbox just got scooped up. So yeah, good times.
Phil has expressed, at least on 2 or 3 occasions now that I've seen on Twitter, that he is very much interested in bringing Discord as a platform over to Xbox. Absolutely. And I think that partnerships that they've got going on with the free Nitro and stuff, that may just be the first steps to that partnership happening.
Hopefully, as a community, especially as we see how Outriders ends up being received, that we can hopefully continue to add that. I don't need something as complex as what Apex Legends does, where it's very contextual, which is, I mean, they did such a great job with that system that, like guys, like that is like when we talk about like the Cadillac systems of people who figured it out, that in and of itself is rock solid. But if nothing else, like just some simple metrics of target this guy, or don't target this guy, or loot here, gun, like whatever, drop here or something. Like, I don't know ultimately like what all is needed, but just some simple way of measuring that. Well, I think that would go a long way for those who don't feel comfortable jumping into a voice chat, so to say. So, all right, let's talk about our PvPers versus anti-PvPers in terms of especially the Outriders conversation. If you guys didn't hang out at the end of the show, we actually posted it as a highlight over on Ginger Gaming Radio. One of the top links, if you guys aren't following that channel, that's kind of where the home of this style content is. But so y'all hopefully will let me know if what you guys like. If you guys want me to keep Epic Loot Radio also broadcasting live on Ginger Prime, I'm looking forward to your feedback on that. But we talked about PvP and the concept of Outriders. Outriders does not have PvP. This has some people incredibly happy. This has some people incredibly concerned. And it's a conversation I thought we bring up, get Rory's kind of input on it, and to kind of restate my position. I don't think it should. I don't think Outriders should. I think it's a cursed problem when you talk about a looter and a PvP game. Doesn't mean that they couldn't. It doesn't mean that they could. You can't find a way. But I'm just thinking that for this game and how it's being prepared and sold and released, adding PvP late in the stage doesn't work. At the core of it, though, I think you can have PvP in the terms of leaderboards and scores, and you can basically take the PvE game and you can make some of it competitive if you give people the tools and the data. And that's just my take, but I want to start with Rory. What do you think? What would you like to see with the game itself?
It's like, to me, it's always about what is the developer's design for a game, because that's always what I want to see. I want to see the purest version of whatever the developer's vision is. Mm-hmm. And in this case, clearly Outriders was intended from beginning to end to be a PvE experience. To tack on PvP on it at this point, and I know that there's always a lot of players that like to say, oh no, just put in PvP, it'll be easy, it'll be fine, it'll be fun. And it's like, no. Okay, PvP is one of those things that has to be thought up from the beginning of the game, right? It can't just be something that like, oh, and by the way, we're going to be next month, we're going to be real quickly just implementing PvP. Like it's not even going to be a problem. It never works out well when they're just trying to tack on stuff. So for me, it's like, would I like to have PvP? I'm usually kind of neutral on PvP. I don't tend to focus too much on the PvP side of things. I'm more of a PvE kind of guy. Co-op action, that type of stuff is what I like. And I agree with what you said. Like you can have the competitive side of things in the same way that you have world firsts on MMOs and stuff like that, or even like in World of Warcraft, you have Mythic Plus leaderboards where people are like, oh, I've done a Mythic Plus 15 in this time, and I've done Mythic Plus 14 in this time, and stuff like that, right? You can have that because you're going to have world tiers. So you can be like, oh, I've done a world tier 10 of expedition number 3 in under 5 minutes. That's your competitive aspect to something like Outriders, which doesn't necessarily exclude people from competing and doesn't force people to compete, right? Like if you still want to go and do your slower runs, you're still fine. It's not a problem. So it doesn't exclude anyone. And you know, if they had thought of PvP from the beginning and they had like a design idea for it, then I'd be open to it. But clearly they don't. This is a PvE game. And I think that wasting resources on PvP at this stage of development is a complete waste of time.
Chaos. I know we've talked about it, and I would like to give you some opportunity to kind of weigh in on what Rory said. What do you think?
I agree with him on some instances where, you know, this game has and always is a PvE game. I do believe PvP can work if they make it a separate entity entirely, so it doesn't interact or affect anything in PvP. We've seen time and time again with, say, like Destiny, where they change a skill in PvP, which affects PvE, and that ruins the PvE experience when it really shouldn't. It needs to be separate. I think it can work, but it needs to be completely isolated from all the stuff that's making the PvE side of things what is great. So those people that just want to focus on PvE can have a really good time and not worry about the PvP. I also think that if they are going to do something like that, they need to make sure either A, all the rewards can be earned in both PvE and PvP, in terms of like if there's a unique weapon that comes out that they put into PvP, that needs to be available in PvE. Or just make the PvP with 0 rewards and just a fun time to go in with a bunch of mates and play in an arena style battle that's not going to impact PvE in any way, shape, or form. And it can have its own ranking system, its own leveling system, and whatever it wants to have. But it will just be like a separate mode to what's already there. They should never touch what's there in PvE. And for the love of God, don't ever mix the two, because nothing ever good comes from that. We've seen this time and time again, and it's just ruined so many games. And we see it time and time again where you've got this really OP gun. I mean, let me just give you an example. For you Destiny 1 players out there, the Vex Mytha class was an absolute monster. It was it was the carrot for the raid. It was the weapon everyone wanted. It absolutely shredded everything. But then people in PvP started crying, and it became a wet noodle.
Yeah. And
no one wanted to use it. And one of the greatest guns ever made in Destiny become one of the most trash weapons of all time.
The as the quote that we opened the show is that gamers will optimize the fun out of everything. The Psycho Superman says, I'm glad that there's no PvP. PvE and PvP are better when focused on individually. One generally steals resources from the other, degrading the game as a whole. And so the obviously, like, if you were going to be in the pro PvP camp, I'm not against that. I'm a PvPer as a gamer, but I think essentially that Psycho Superman has it ultimately right. Like, if they're going to sit here and have to like put resources into it, that means there's longer gaps in PvE content. Then yeah, like PvP, while it would fill those gaps, and it does, PvP being a sandbox, there's other ways they can kind of build that sandbox in a which way that gives players a lot of freedom and control. And that's what I'm really excited to see the community come up with. Like, are we going to see a massive speedrunning community? Are we going to see build run, like diversifying builds and doing all kinds of crazy things that nobody thought possible? That's what I'm excited to see. And I think hopefully that brings a lot of life to the game itself. And thank you guys, especially the Psycho Superman, summarizing the point incredibly well. So, all
That's what
right.
Division
Any
does,
other
right?
thoughts on? Yeah, Division has a kind of an interesting PVE PvP concept experience, and so like I've been just starting Division, so I'm still learning it. Like, do y'all want to talk about Division for a second?
No, because what I was going to say was the Division has basically this type of thing you're talking about. They have these things called the leagues, and it's all PvE based, and you have to do certain missions on certain difficulties within a certain amount of time. And the faster you do it, the more points you get, and you scale up this kind of chart of how many points you get. And at the end of the day, every time you hit a new milestone, you get a new reward, and and that's a whole season kind of thing, and they renew that every season. So they just put new modifiers into those PvE encounters, new times, and you've just got to group up with your buddies, get your gear, and try and beat the rest and get the high score. And they've got like a leaderboard table so you can see where you stand with everyone else and how good you're doing against everyone else in your server or around the world. And it's a really cool idea, and it just gets you motivated to do that bit more until people start cheating.
Until the cheating begins.
Until they start cheating, and you're like, table flip.
Yep.
All right. And so that brings us to our final topic for today's podcast. And that's going to be essentially, what do you guys want to see as a part of new modes for the game itself? Future modes that you would love to see for Outriders. And I didn't actually create that as a banner, so I'm going to go ahead and mute and let you guys answer the question.
Over to you, Rurikon.
So the first thing that instantly comes to mind when I'm thinking about new modes is potentially to have like a longer type of expedition where you could potentially like mix 2 or 3 of the expeditions. Because I don't know how long they're going to be, but we're seeing times like rewards that you would get more of them at 20 minutes or something. Instead of having rewards at 20 minutes, it would be cool if you'd have a mode where it would like mix 3 of those expeditions into one like longer expedition. And it wouldn't be about time, but it would be whether or not you're actually able to finish it. You know, just have it be almost like a raid type encounter. Maybe you could even, I don't know if you should increase the number of players, because they already said that 4 players was too messy on the screen.
It's too chaotic.
It's too chaotic. Yeah. So just having like a little bit longer form content so that you have the expeditions that can take like your 20 minutes or whatever. But say like you're in a LAN party with a couple of friends and you guys got like, I don't know, a full hour that you can burn on just doing content. Like, wouldn't it be better for you to just, no, we're just going to do this one activity that combines like 3 of these almost like randomly. And then there's additional rewards at the end. Or maybe you have like checkpoints in between. So like you finish one, and then you can tap out now, or you can go into the next one, but it's going to be harder and you're risking losing your loot. Like something along those lines that would allow you to keep playing for a little bit of a longer time period, as opposed to the shorter missions that you're going to get at the end game. That's like just the first thing that pops to mind.
Go ahead, Cass.
I was saying, so something like a horde mode with checkpoints.
Yeah.
Like Gears of War.
Yeah, I don't know if any like y'all really know this about me, because most of the community, at least from a video game, people who like video games tends to know that I love Final Fantasy, and the other passion and love that I have is the Gears of War series. Like, I am a huge Gears head. I play that game. I consume it, like, and I don't really make content around it because there's nothing really for me to do. So otherwise, I just straight up enjoy that game. And in Gears 5, which just got an update, so I'm probably gonna do my typical like 2 months of just mainlining Gears here in a couple of weeks when I get my new PC. The core of it is like, I love that they have a new 12 round horde mode. One of the things about matchmaking with the 50 round horde mode tended to be that people would bounce out after like maybe 1 tier or 2 tiers, but the streamlined, faster, getting everything in, and hopefully. All right, good. Rory's recovered. Like having that like just intense like wave based just chaos is so much fun to me, and so that's Resolve puts that up as a comment as well. And yeah, I think a horde mode is something that could end up it breathes in life, but then from a holistic mindset, when all of this is put together, like as long as the game is like it's it has that gameplay that keeps us coming back, but then there's systems in which that we as players can find new ways to challenge the content and have fun. And when you look at what they've got in terms of like just PC specs, customization of the UI, so much more. These guys are definitely pros. and what they do. And I think a lot of people are going to feel really, really excited about what releases on the 25th for the demo. And the fact that your progress carries forward into the main game is a very big confidence move that will allow people to experience the game and see if it's for them, because not every game is for them. Not every game will be. And that's my thoughts on that. Anybody have any final thoughts as we wrap up today's podcast? A little bit longer than usual, but there was so much to talk about this week. Let's start with Rory.
Final thoughts in terms of what? Outriders?
Outriders, podcasting, video games, Final Fantasy 14 6.0, assumingly tonight, if you guys want to join us live.
Oh, man, yeah. I'm going to be joining in live to watch the content. But, any final thoughts is like, I just hope that Outriders doesn't go the route of like, we know they've had all of these delays, but I just hope that these delays were enough and we don't end up in another situation where it's like, oh yeah, there's this bug, but we're gonna fix it, and it's like the game's completely broken. Like that's my biggest fear, and I hope that they don't fall into that mistake, because we've had so many games, particularly recently, that seem to come out and they're all completely broken, and there's only so many games that the community is going to be able to recover from. Like, we're not going to be accepting every game that is broken. Like Final Fantasy 14 was able to pull through, No Man's Sky was able to pull through. Are there going to be more that will be able to pull through? We don't know. But how about just don't put yourselves in that particular position to begin with?
Exactly. All right. Chaos, how about you, man? Any final thoughts? Anything you want to share?
I just want the game to be complete and working. I'm expecting bugs, right? There is no game that has no bugs. I've worked in the games industry long enough to know that there are just bugs that are always going to be there. But as long as they're not game breaking and they're not, they're not there to ruin your experience. They're just minor bugs that might appear. I just want it to be working, complete, and something we can enjoy out the box rather than waiting for 3 months like Cyberpunk for it to actually get to a stage where I can even turn it on.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It says a lot about the state of the gaming industry in terms of some of the recent releases. So what are your biggest hopes for this game? I hope it works and it's complete and it doesn't explode.
My console doesn't turn off.
Well, the latest patch.
Are we going
Cyberpunk,
backwards? Good.
Introduced vulnerabilities where people could put viruses onto your computer. That's crazy. The 1.1.12 actually, where they enabled mods, actually enabled it so people could attach viruses onto it, and you'd be none the wiser for taking them, and the game would just activate the viruses. They've released a new patch now, so if anyone is playing that game, definitely download that 1.1.2. But this sort of stuff is crazy.
I'll continue to play on Stadia until Google just turns that switch completely off.
But there was one other game that actually caught my eye this week that I wanted to get your opinions on.
Okay, go ahead.
The Day Before.
That's I've heard of that. Like, that's something. Tell us about it, because people were like, "Hey, Brian, have you seen this?" And I'm like,
"The Division."
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a Division setting. It looks like you're in New York at Christmas. When I first saw the trailer, I thought it was The Division. It looks absolutely mind-blowingly good.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a kind of Tarvok game where you go around looting cars and you can loot people's gear and stuff like that if you take them out. So there is a PvP element to it, much to my dissatisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a game that's on my radar that I really, really want to check out once it's available. At the moment, it's slated for PC only. There are talks of it coming to consoles as well.
Do they have a release date or a release window? Not yet.
Coming soon.
It's coming soon this year. I think they said first half of 2021.
Oh, really? So first half. Okay, that actually means soon then in that regards. Like, coming soon. Like, is this another Square Enix? Like, hey guys, we got this game, and 10 years later, it's finally here.
Zombies.
What's that?
Open world MMO survival.
And it's got zombies.
That's what the game you're talking about? It's an open world MMO survival.
Yeah,
that's what it says on their description on Steam.
Just if you've got the trailer is there, just check it out. Put it on.
Yeah, let's just grab it. Is it on Twitter or just what is it on YouTube?
YouTube, yeah.
All right, let's just do it. Let's just pull it up.
Absolutely.
What's it called again? Sorry.
The Day Before.
The Day Before.
I mean, when I saw it, my heart just started going. I just fell in love with it straight away.
All right, and oh no, that's actually an ad for Destiny that just popped up. I was like, Xbox? What? And it's like, you just said PC only. So, all right, well, let's see. When this ad finishes playing, then I can
The
skip
day
it.
before, yes, Streefer.
Okay, here we go. So now it's playing on screen the day before. So here we are live reacting to, or at least I am. And then the newspaper is called The Day Before. So that's very interesting choice in terms of naming your newspaper.
It's The Division.
This looks incredible. Developed by basically a company named Fantastic.
I mean, yeah, this game absolutely blew me away when I saw this trailer. I mean, I hope it's good. I really, really hope it's good because I can see myself sinking untold hours into this.
Mm-hmm. Well, the character models look great. The street, yeah, this does feel a little Division-esque, and this is obviously not
area.
massive. Well, in New York, I mean, how like I wouldn't expect that. Like, here's our artistic rendition of what we think New York looks like.
You never know with these creatives.
Oh, hold F. Can I get some Fs in chat, please?
Ruricon will be happy now. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a
Cowboy
hat.
boy.
Oh man, I'm
freaking
sold. Oh look, it's got
gorgeous.
looks like it's got indicators that the survival indicators in there. Looks like our character's a little bit dehydrated. Then it's got energy levels and how cold he is, which means he's going to have to bundle up.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the survival aspect. The thing is that you need these things too. Like your character's just not like I can live forever, like just by doing nothing. Like having your hydration level, I guess electricity for energy level in this regard.
Yeah, looks like it.
And then if you're freezing your butt off, go ahead.
I'm not usually big into survival games personally, so I don't know. I'd be very like I don't know, because like the thing is the survival genre has been almost a bubble, very similar to the MMO genre, where it's like someone made an MMO and then suddenly there's a million of them in the market, and the survival game's kind of like the same thing. You have like Ark, and then Ark made a new expansion before they even finished the base game. Then they made a new game. It's just like million survival games just like coming out. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in them.
I mean, it looks good. It looks like he just drank a soda. We got people got action going on here. Let's see what's going to happen.
I just really love the post-apocalyptic setting.
Are these other players or?
Yeah, they're other players.
Okay, so like other player, like okay, very
because enemies would be zombie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. What happens if you die in this game?
That is a good question.
Are you
one of them's about to die and lose all this stuff, but
yeah, that's what you get. You get looted, like full PvP loot. There you go.
That's something that is an interesting debate within gaming, because that's something that Amazon's New World was trying to do. And then eventually you kind of see like, okay, people are just constantly griefing you. And the MMO, the thing is that he just got all naked.
But wouldn't it be cool if something like this had like a PvE only game where there's like different servers for those that are experiencing full out battle? Because I know the Division did that at the end, where you could go into PvE only and then PvP and PvE as well in this sort of game. And I think that would work really well. I mean, I would totally be in the PvE only world, surviving and looting and getting my gear sorted. But I hope something like that comes along, because I'm not hot into the PvP side of things, but I do love the whole way the game looks, and the PvE aspect of it just appeals to me so much.
That was nuts. Like he turned that corner and all of a sudden there's just like a wave of zombies and things like that. The thing is that there's always ideas of things that work on paper, but like how do you work and make that play out in a way that's interesting and entertaining and enjoyable, so that it's like if you log in and you're experiencing lots of stress, like, and the game's like log in every day so you can, like, what kind of MMO are we talking about? Like sandbox style? Are we talking like, okay, do your dailies, got log in to kill 5 zombies, and it's like, oh man, like this is stressing me out just watching this. It looks gorgeous. The animation in terms of like how he hurdled the thing blew me away. I was like, because that does feel very Division. One of the things as a new Division player, I'm like, the animations that the game brings is incredible. Like this is something amazing. But what's the overall end game goal? Like there's, I don't know. You've got me you first had my attention, but now you have my curiosity, or something.
There we go.
Whatever
That's
the line is. That's cool, man. Thank you very much for bringing this to my attention. That's going to be interesting to see what happens and what follows and how that development goes. So who knows if it has a looting element, we can talk about it here at Epic Loot Radio. All right. All right, guys. How about we go, Rory, where can people find you? What you got working on? Go ahead and plug your stuff, dude.
They can find me on youtube.com/Rurikon, which is where pretty much I post most of my content. Every now and then I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Rurikon. And right now I'm mostly working on Monster Hunter Rise content that's going to be coming out on the 26th of March. And up until then, there's going to be a bunch of new Monster Hunter Rise content that I'll be working on. And obviously going to be checking out some Final Fantasy 14 as well with the news of 6.0, because I want to get that is going to be the first expansion that I'm going to be diving in right as it releases. And obviously Outriders, that's going to be the bulk of my content for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, guys, be sure to check them out. Fantastic voice, fantastic hat, fantastic channel. All right, Chaos, how about you, man? What you got working on, and where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube /Chaos Prime ZYT. I am currently working quite heavily on Outriders and, well, any news that comes up with regards to Anthem. I am covering oddballs, little bits of there, but my main focus for the time being is Outriders and Anthem. You can also find me on Twitter at Chaos Prime Z. And if you do want to see me streaming when I am streaming, it's at twitch.tv/Chaos Prime ZYT.
All right, thank you. And then for me, I am Brian, aka Ginger Prime. Tonight, you can find me over at Work to Game as we are covering the Final Fantasy event. You can also find me here at Ginger Prime or at Ginger Gaming Radio. Probably another 100 channels that I'll probably make. Who knows this year? I have a problem. Thanks, guys, so much for tuning in. I really appreciate everybody hanging out here for the live show. Looking forward to your feedback and thoughts on any of this. But for Epic Loot Radio, episode 12, that's the train. That means it's time to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time. But until then, take care.